Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. For those who are not so new, you don't know. Your passport is your ticket to other countries. If you don't have a passport, you pretty much can't go anywhere. Well, apart from the US that can travel to other countries, some countries without a passport, but you know, that's for another time. We'll discuss it another time. But for the most part, if you don't have a passport, you can't go anywhere. And therefore, it is very important to keep your passport safe while traveling, before, during, and after, so that you are easy to move from one country to the other without being in any great trouble as it relates to security and being in trouble with the government of the country that you are going to or you're currently in. Alright, so in this video I'll be talking about seven ways to save your passport, to keep it, why keep on saying save? 7 ways to keep your passport safe while traveling, after travel, during travel, etc. I'll be breaking this down into 3 parts. This is before you travel, during your travels, and after you've reached your destination. Number 1 is have copies. I mean, seriously, print copies. Before you travel to your destination, print copies. Whether you want 2, 3, or 4, but print copies of your passport just in case something happens. So you want to print a copy and leave it back home to your close friend or a family member. That way, if you are in the country, you lose your passport and something happens that you don't have those copies with you, you might need to reach back home, tell them to scan it and send it via email or whatever, just in case. We're talking about worst case scenarios here. Alright, now for the other copies, you leave one home and you bring the others with you. Well, 2 or 3 depending. You don't never know what can happen. But ensure that you keep the copies separate places from your passport. And I mean, you might want to put one in this bag, one in the other bag, and so on, apart, separate from your passport. That way, if you lose your passport, you can use a copy just in case, and that also helps you to get your passport easier if you have, get it back easier if you have a copy of the one that you lost. So you want to keep that in mind when you're traveling. And I'm really bad with this because I've actually never printed a copy, but I know that I'm supposed to keep a copy. So you know what, the next time I am definitely going to print a copy of my passport. And another pro tip also is that you might also want to put a copy in your checked luggage, so that if you lose your bag, and now that's another story, if you lose your bag, it will be easy for them to identify that the bag is yours when they open it. So keep that in mind as well. You know, just put it above your clothes or above everything, so that as they open the bag, bam, your information is already there. So keep that in mind. Keep your passports separate. If you're traveling as a family, you don't want to keep all the passports in one place. I understand that you might be traveling with siblings or with children, babies who can't keep their passports for themselves. But when you're traveling together, ensure that one person has one passport. And in the case where it's your children, you want to put them in different places in your bag, so that if you lose one passport, you don't lose all of them. Because trust me, honey, it is not cheap to replace the passport, especially when you're in another country that is not native to you. So it's a long story to get them and depending on how soon your trip is going back to your country, it's very pricey. So you might want to keep that in mind, keep them separate. Hopefully you have travel insurance, and that's another story as well, but keep them separate. If you're traveling with members, family members, even though you might be the only one carrying all the passports, keep them in different areas. Don't store them in one area, so when you lose one thing, you lose everything. Keep that in mind. When traveling in transit, be very vigilant of your surrounding. Be very observant. You want to look around you. Well, not look to be paranoid, but just keep an eye out of who's around you when you're looking at your passport, because there are people who are checking to see whose items they can steal in the airport. And I know this might sound strange that people are traveling to get their destination, but there are people who are looking to steal your passport, because your passport is like gold in the black market, and we'll be talking about that a little more. But your passport is very pricey on the black market, so you want to keep it safe when you're traveling with it, right? When you're checking for your passport, ensure that you check in private, so that there's no one really watching you to see where you're keeping the passport stored. You want to also have a little small bag, or what they call it, body bag or something, that you know exactly where the passport is. You don't want to store it in your backpack. You keep it in front of you so that you know exactly where it is at all times. And also check on it regular, just to see if you've missed it along the way, because there are times when you're passing through the airport and the immigration officer might ask to see your passport. You want to ensure that after they've seen your passport, you get it back. Very important. Ensure you get it back. Check every now and then if you have the passport, just to ensure that if you don't have it on you, it's easy for you to retrace your steps and you'll be able to find it, hopefully. So you want to keep that in mind and ensure that you always have your passport in front of you or where you can see it easily when you are traveling. The fourth way tip is knowing your rights. Know when you need to use it and know when you don't need to use it, because there are so many scams around that they might ask you to see your passport and then they might run off with your passport. So you want to ensure that the person who is requesting to see the passport is a government official, and we mean official government official, and one that is asking. It is mainly the only time you might need to see your passport is when you're passing through immigration, or you're leaving for the US, you're leaving the country. So after you've passed through immigration, you've collected your bags, then you might see another set of people that they might ask you a few questions, but they're all in official clothing, so it's not pretty easy for them to, steal it. But ensure that it's a government official or somebody who's working at the airport and who has authority to ask you for your passport. If they ask you for an identification, you first find out if another method of identification is acceptable. So for example, you want to travel with another set of identification, which is an ID, a national ID or a driver's license. So when they say ID please, you have that to pull out of the hand, and if they really need to see your passport, which is not always the case, then you can give it when necessary. But know your rights, know when you need to use the passport. You also might want to take an identification card with you if you're traveling to some clubs. There are some clubs that require ID before entering the club, especially in the US. So you want to ensure that you don't bring your passport with you if you don't need to. you bring your driver's license or national ID so that you can use that as substitute and lock it up or lock up your passport elsewhere, or it depends. It's a bit risky to leave it back at the place that you're staying, and it's also a bit risky to keep it on your person. But just to be safe, you don't want to be going to clubs with a passport, especially if you're planning to get drunk. That's not a wise idea, because you never know what can happen. So you want to keep it safe and ensure that when you don't need to use the passport, you don't use it. Moving to the next point, where we're talking about locking up the passport. And as I said before, if you don't need to use the passport, leave it, at the place that you're staying. Or if you're a bit paranoid of the area that you're staying, you might want to have a body bag on you, or what they call it, like a bag that you can hide inside your clothing, to keep it safe, or just to ensure that you have your passport on you. But if you're planning, if it's the place that you're staying is relatively safe, in the sense where they might have a locker. For some hostels, for hotels, they might have a safe. You might want to get the combinations for that safe, and therefore you'll be able to put your personal items in it and lock it up, so that even if the person who is cleaning your place or your room, they will have access to a drawer or something. So you want to keep your information safe, all your documents, you lock it up in a safe or a locker. Maybe for those places that don't have, for Airbnbs that don't have a safe or a locker somewhere, you could, it's a possibility that you could also buy a padlock for your suitcase, put your personal information in there and lock your suitcase. That is an extra step of security. Not say it's 100% safe, but it's a barrier to get easy access into your personal items. So keep that in mind. Why do I keep on saying keep that in mind? But look out for that and ensure that you are looking at all these things when you are at your location. Please, 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 if you decide to take your passport with you, ensure that you have it on you at all times. Do not leave it. I remember last year when I went to Miami Beach, there was this couple that went into the beach and left their personal items on the sand and went into the beach, and when they came back, everything was gone. Now, if you don't know about Miami Beach or any beach at all, public beach to be specific, I think any beach at all, there are people going around and they are stealing. They're looking for things that are unaccompanied, and they will steal your things. And it's very common in Miami Beach, and for any beach for that matter. If you leave your things unattended, you cannot guarantee that you'll be getting them back. And I'm very serious. You want to keep it safe. The couple, when they came back out of that water, there was absolutely nothing there. And the unfortunate thing also was that they were traveling a few hours later that day, and their passports and everything was gone. So you want to ensure that if you decide to go to the beach on that day, you lock up your passport. Do not bring it with you if you don't need to. Or if you're planning to go into the beach with someone, ensure that the person going to the beach, you stay back, you go into the beach and they stay back with your items. You don't want to leave it unattended because it will be gone. When you're traveling with your passport, you want to keep it in the same place. Keep it in the same place where you always hide it, so that you know where to find it. You don't want to put it here today, put it here tomorrow, put it here next day, and then before you know it, you think you've lost it, but you've never really lost it because you can't find it. And thinking you've lost your passport, honey, it is not fun. Believe me, it's not fun. So ensure that you keep your passport when you're hiding it in the same place, so that you always remember, say, oh yeah, I always stored it there, so it must be there. Now if it's in an area where you always put it and then you go to that area and you can't find it, then chances are you might want to look other places before you think or declare it lost or stolen. So ensure that you keep it on your person or store it in the same place at all time when you're hiding it, so that you remember where it is. The final tip, number 7, is protect it. Yes, I say protect it. I said protect it. Protection for your passport is not only towards theft. Protect against the weather, protect it against water and all these other things. There are times, or protect it from humidity. It's one thing to get your passport stolen, but it's another thing to get it damaged. And sometimes when your passport is damaged by the weather or any other method, you won't be able, if some of the information has disappeared from the passport, specifically the ID page, the page that has the most important information, which is your date of birth and all these fancy things, you might want to keep it safe. Make sure to keep it in a dry area and have a waterproof cover, or keep it in a plastic so it's against water and all of these things, because if it's wet and if anything on it is damaged, chances are you might have to replace it. And as I said before, replacing your passport is not cheap, especially for I think it's Sweden, but there's a country that has the most expensive passport. But you want to ensure that you always protect it, because it is not cheap to replace the passport, especially if you need an emergency one. Yeah, I think that is it. But keep your passport safe, guys. Your passport is gold on the black market. Believe me, your passport is gold on the black market. It can cost as much as 10,000 US dollars, or probably more or less depending, but it can cost a lot. I mean, getting somebody else's passport on the black market is very expensive. So you want to keep your passport safe, especially for those countries that have visa-free access to almost all the countries. For example, the US that has visa-free access to 172 countries. It might change, but they have countries to 172 out of the 190 something. So those passport, like the British passport, the Canadian passport, the US passport, people who are holders for those passports, you want to keep them safe, honey, because if they are lost, they can cost a lot in the black market. So keep your passport safe and ensure that you enjoy your travels. That is it. I hope that's not everything, but I did share a lot with you today, and I hope that it will help you when you're going on your next trip. You want to save this video so that when you're traveling you can come back to it and remember all these things to check off when you're traveling. Yeah, remember to like, share and subscribe. Share with your friends. I think this is very important. Ensure to keep your passport safe, guys. Happy travels, and I'll see you the next time.